Daily learning.
There was a girl who always sat in the same spot, near the tall window on the second floor of the city library, right next to the shelf that nobody really visited anymore. The one with old poetry books and dusty biographies. And even though most people didn't notice her, the light always did. It poured in through the glass, soft and golden in the mornings, and it fell gently on her sketchbook like it knew she needed it, like it wanted to stay a while. She wasn't loud, and she didn't wear bright clothes or anything that would make her stand out. She was just there, with her knees pulled up sometimes, and her headphones resting loosely around her neck even though no music was playing. Her hair usually slipped out of her ponytail by midday, and there were always faint marks of pencil on her fingertips, the kind you get when you erase a little too hard. And she drew, quietly, steadily, like she was breathing through her hands. She could have gone to a park, or a cafe, or even stayed at home, but something about the library felt safe. Maybe because it was always a little too quiet and a little too cold, or maybe because people didn't really ask questions there. They minded their own business, and they let her mind hers, and that was exactly what she needed. The smell of old pages, mixed with the sound of soft footsteps on carpet and the occasional hum of someone whispering, made her feel like she was inside a memory instead of a place. And when she looked around, she saw stories. On the shelves, in people's faces, and especially in the way the light moved during the day. That's what she tried to catch in her drawings. Not just what things looked like, but how they felt. She didn't always draw people, and even when she did, they didn't really look like anyone specific. They had eyes that looked too sad or smiles that looked too tired, and sometimes she drew houses that looked like they could breathe, or trees that seemed like they were trying to tell her something. Because drawing wasn't about making things look perfect, it was about putting her feelings somewhere outside her chest so they wouldn't feel so heavy all the time. There were days when she felt like she couldn't say what she was thinking. Not to friends, not to family, not even to herself. And on those days, her pencil knew before she did. It would move slowly at first, just lines and shapes with no real direction. But then suddenly she looked down and realized she had drawn a girl sitting alone on a rooftop, or a sky full of falling stars, or a hallway with too many closed doors. And she'd nod, just a little, because even though she hadn't said a word, she'd finally heard herself. She never really showed her drawings to anyone, not because she didn't want to, but because they felt too personal, like pages from a diary she hadn't written on purpose. And even though she sometimes wondered what people would say if they saw them, part of her liked the quiet privacy of it all. The art didn't have to be good, it just had to be hers. So, she kept showing up. Every week, sometimes more than once. She'd bring a new sketchbook when the last one got full, and she'd find her spot by the window and start again, always starting with a line that didn't know where it was going but trusted that it would find its way. Just like her. She didn't always use color, but when she did, it meant something. Blue was for days when her chest felt too tight and her thoughts moved a little too fast. Yellow was for when she felt hopeful, but in a soft kind of way, like she was smiling inside, even if her face wasn't. And red only came out when the feelings were too big, too loud, too hard to hold in. Sometimes she'd mix colors that didn't go together just to see what would happen, and most of the time, it looked kind of messy, but that was the point. Not everything had to be neat. Not everything had to make sense. And the thing was, nobody ever told her it was wrong. Not the librarians, not the people who walked by, not even the silence. It was like the library understood her somehow. Like the walls had seen enough stories to know that sometimes the quiet ones were the most full. She noticed things that others didn't. Like the way the sunlight changed color around 3 p.m., turning golden then pink, and how the shadows stretched like they were getting sleepy. She noticed how the old man near the back always read the same book and traced the same line with his finger, and how the librarian with the red glasses sometimes hummed under her breath when she thought no one was listening. She noticed how people held their coffee cups differently. Some with 2 hands, some with just their fingertips, and she wondered what that said about them. She noticed how silence had a shape in the library, how it curled into corners and waited patiently, never rushing anyone to speak. And because she noticed all these little things, she drew them. Not always exactly how they looked, but how they felt to her. She turned the humming librarian into a woman with birds flying out of her pockets, and the old man into a tree with pages for leaves. She turned the afternoon light into a girl with a glowing scarf that wrapped around everyone she passed. Because noticing was a kind of loving, even if she never said it out loud. Some days, she came to the library not because she felt inspired, but because the world outside was too loud, and she needed to remember how to breathe. On those days, she wouldn't draw right away. She'd just sit there, her hands in her lap, and let the stillness settle around her like a blanket. She liked knowing that the books weren't going anywhere, that the shelves would always stay in the same place, and that nobody expected her to be anything other than quiet. The world outside was full of noise, of people trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to be everything all at once, and sometimes it made her feel small in a way that wasn't peaceful. But inside the library, she didn't have to prove anything. She could just be. Eventually, her fingers would start to itch for her pencil again. And even if she didn't have a clear idea in her head, she'd draw something. A cup of tea with steam turning into clouds, or a girl walking through a storm made of scribbles. And the act of drawing, even when it was messy and slow, reminded her that she still had control over something, even if it was just the curve of a line. There are different kinds of quiet in the world, but the one in the library, the one she found in that little corner by the window, it was her favorite. It wasn't the kind of silence that felt empty or awkward. It was full of unspoken thoughts, full of ideas waiting to be written down, full of people being gentle with themselves. That's what she loved most about the space. It didn't rush her. It didn't interrupt. It let her have her silence without demanding an explanation. And in return, she gave it pieces of herself through her sketches. Every drawing left a little bit of her heart behind, a shade of sadness, a splash of joy, a hint of confusion or wonder, and she liked to believe the library kept them safe, like soft secrets hidden between pages. There were moments when her drawings knew what she was feeling before she did. And that was always kind of strange, but also comforting. Like, she'd be sketching without thinking too hard, just letting her hand move wherever it wanted. And then she'd stop and look at the page and realize, oh, so that's what's been sitting on my chest all week. One time, she drew a girl standing in the rain holding a flower that was already half bloomed and half wilted. She didn't plan it that way, it just came out. But when she looked at it, she felt something in her stomach twist, and suddenly she knew why she had been so tired lately. It wasn't because she hadn't been sleeping, it was because she had been carrying too much in her heart, trying to stay hopeful while feeling like something inside her was slowly fading. But instead of pushing the feeling away, she stared at the drawing for a while, and then she smiled, just a little. Because somehow, the sadness felt lighter once it had a shape. She kept all her finished sketchbooks in a box under her bed, stacked neatly, labeled by season instead of date, like spring sketches. The year I almost fell in love, or autumn days, and all the things I didn't say. She didn't show them to anyone, not even her best friend, but she'd sometimes flip through the pages herself when the house was quiet, and it always felt like walking through a memory garden. Every page was like a window. Some showed places she missed, like the little bakery near her childhood home that closed down, or the old train station where she used to wait after school. Others were just moods, like loneliness, drawn as a girl hugging her knees inside a bubble, or joy, drawn as stars bursting out of someone's chest like confetti. And even though she never planned for her drawings to become anything big, she couldn't help but think of them as her own secret gallery, a place where every piece was a piece of herself, hidden in plain sight. People sometimes said things like, "Oh, you draw? That's so cool," or "You must be really good at art." And while she appreciated the kindness, they never really understood that it wasn't about being good. It was never just a hobby or something she did to pass time. It was how she survived, honestly. It was how she told the truth when her mouth didn't know how to. There were times when words felt too sharp or too heavy, or just too far away. But lines and shapes? They were always there for her, patient and ready, letting her speak without saying anything. So whenever she heard someone say, "just drawing," she wanted to tell them, softly, not in an angry way, but in a gentle kind of whisper, that just drawing had saved her more than once. It had held her together on days when nothing else did. It had helped her make sense of chaos, and it had reminded her, again and again, that even when things felt dark, there was still beauty in her, beauty she could hold in her hands. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, something almost changed. A girl around her age sat down a few tables away in the library and kept glancing over at her while she drew. At first, she ignored it, thinking maybe the girl was just bored. But then the girl smiled, kind of shy, and said, "Hey, are you drawing that from your head or from a photo?" It was the first time in a long time that someone had asked her about her art, especially while she was still making it. Her heart jumped a little, and for a second, she wanted to close the sketchbook and hide it like a secret that had been found too soon. But something in the way the girl asked, curious, not nosy, made her pause. She looked down at the half-finished sketch, then back up and nodded. "From my head," she said quietly, her voice unsure but real. The girl said it was beautiful, then went back to her book. And that was it. No big conversation, no dramatic moment, but for some reason, that tiny exchange stayed with her all day. Not because someone liked her drawing, but because for once she didn't hide, and nothing bad happened. Over time, her sketchbooks filled up faster than before, not because she was rushing or anything, but because she was finally allowing herself to feel things fully, without pushing them away or trying to explain them. She stopped overthinking every line and just let her hands move the way they wanted to. Some drawings were tiny, delicate, like whispers on a page. Others took up whole spreads, wild and messy, and full of life. Sometimes, she would quietly tear out a page that meant a lot to her. Not because she didn't want it anymore, but because she wanted to leave a part of herself behind. And every now and then, she'd tuck that page into a poetry book or slide it between encyclopedias no one opened anymore, like a small gift for someone who might need it one day. Maybe a stranger would find it and feel a little less alone. She never signed them. She never wanted credit. It's just connection. She didn't need to be famous or rich or have 1 million followers online. She didn't want a gallery or a spotlight or even a fancy art degree. All she really wanted was this: a quiet table by the window, a pencil in her hand, and a world that didn't rush her. Because sometimes peace doesn't come in big ways. Sometimes it comes in the soft shuffle of pages being turned, in the way the sun slowly climbs across the floor, or in the gentle weight of your own heartbeat slowing down after a hard week. Drawing didn't fix everything. It didn't magically make sadness disappear or turn loneliness into light. But it helped her hold those things in her hands, gently, without fear. And that was enough. Years later, long after she had filled dozens of sketchbooks and the library had rearranged the shelves more times than she could count, she still found herself drifting back to that same window seat. Maybe not every day, but often enough. The light still came in just right, and the silence still wrapped around her like an old friend. And when she opened a new page, she still felt that same flutter in her chest, the one that said, "You're safe here. You can be soft. You can begin again." She never stopped drawing because she never stopped feeling. And her story, It was still being drawn, line by line, page by page, not always perfect, but always real. Thank you for reading this journey, for walking beside her through the quiet corners and the messy pages, for pausing in the stillness with her, and for letting her story, soft, imperfect, and honest, rest gently in your hands. May you be reminded that even in your quietest moments, there's something beautiful blooming quietly inside you too. Keep creating, keep feeling, and never stop drawing your own way forward.